Welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community, with your host, Dina Zuckerberg.
Hello, and welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community. I'm Dina Zuckerberg, your host and Director of Family Programs at myFace. Like many of you listening, I have a craniofacial difference. I was born with a cleft lip, a hearing loss, and no vision in my left eye. myFace, myStory is about people like us being seen and heard, about sharing stories within the craniofacial community and with others. This podcast episode is made possible through support from the Integra Foundation, committed to improving lives. By the way, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening through Apple Podcasts, click subscribe now and we'll keep you updated on future episodes so you never miss out. And if you're a fan of myFace, myStory, please rate and review the program on Apple Podcasts so we can get our message of inclusivity and empowerment to more people. Today, I am joined by Paige Billiot. Paige is a birthmark advocate, model, and film producer, creating global birthmark representation and awareness within the beauty, fashion, and media industries. She uses social media to highlight her birthmark with makeup, props, graphic design, and VFX. Her influence has been recognized in many magazines, including Harper's Bazaar, 17, Glamour, and Women's Health, earning her a spot on Glamour's 50 Instagrammers you need to follow right now. When she isn't advocating for the birthmark community, she loves taking her 4 cats on walks in their strollers while expanding her chai tea latte palette and Scooby-Doo collection. Welcome, Paige. Hi, I really look forward to our conversations.
Hello, yes,
Hi.
I'm so excited to be here. When you asked me to join, I could not wait to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. So can you share a bit about your personal journey and how you came to embrace your birthmark as your superpower?
Oh man, I mean I think any self-accepting journey is quite the ride, I'm sure, as you know.
Yeah.
And a very long one. I still feel like it's, I'm still learning about myself. I'm still learning deeper levels of love and acceptance. But yeah, I for most of my, I would say up until, a little outside of high school is when I started to get a little bit, definitely more consistently comfortable with, just kind of going outside the house without makeup, just to run errands. I remember the end of high school, I stopped wearing more full coverage foundation and just doing kind of like powder over the birthmark. So it was a very gradual process of accepting and then fully embracing. And, how ironically life can be with having a birthmark on half of my face. I wanted to be an actress at a very young age. And I did that at high school. I was a performing arts major at Las Vegas Academy of Performing Arts and International Studies, which was actually really, really fun and really great for the self-confidence and just being able to perform. I had my birthmark covered, but, still being on stage and just being in that environment. And then when I moved out to LA in 2014, very much the intention of being in front and behind the camera. Always wanted to be a filmmaker to some capacity. And I, took 2 years of trying to do the thing, trying to get an agent, the auditions, the managers, trying to get into just short films, student films, whatever I could get into. And, it was a very consistent pattern of confusion and, some of this same comments of just, we don't know where to put you. You're too distracting in the front and back, we're very confused on where to place you. And I got, I reached a threshold and a point, and I got really frustrated at the process. And I just realized, I just kind of have to make something on my own, which really isn't that different of a story that I think everybody in LA ends up coming to realize at some point anyways, that you're going to have to just kind of make your own stuff.
Right.
So being really frustrated, I couldn't make a film overnight, but I could take a photo And that's when I started the Instagram. This was like mid 2015. I felt really conflicted. I wanted so badly to be a representation in this space, but just also just in general.
Right.
But at the same time, I was still struggling on my own of just, how to be seen and be seen confidently, what my voice was, where to share it. And so I started the Instagram and I started taking some photos where my birthmark was kind of the highlight. Sorry, you can kind of hear my cat in the background. He's supportive, cheerleading in the back.
There you go.
And the focus was the birthmark, and I was just that was like the main highlight of the photo, and I was showing it in ways that was just really empowering for me specifically, but I was hoping that it was creating a new perspective on like how we see flaws. So I was highlighting it with makeup. I think I actually started doing it with graphic design and like overlaying it with like graphics of like space and just really fun, beautiful, just elements like nature, like rain and fire and all this fun stuff. And it really shifted it next level as far as acceptance and embracement. Like I didn't even know that was like an option. I felt so silly in that moment, being like, oh my God, like I could highlight this. Like that was never an option presented to me, never, taught. Like, when we go to doctor's office, it's here. Well, thank God there's maybe some things that can help cover it up or to help get rid of it, to help, give you somewhat of a comfortable life, a semi-comfortable life. It was never, well, why don't you try embracing it? Why don't you try putting glitter on it? Why don't you try doing some kind of like empowerment activity where you can actually see it as art or see it as something just really cool and different. Different can be cool. So that was a huge moment in my life, was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was like a thing that I needed permission to do. I think I was around 25 or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. And so, that was like, that was just a whole new world. And everything then was like, how do I highlight this? Like, oh, that would be such a cool idea. Oh, I love that color. What an inspiration for like a theme. Like, fill this in with, or, and I never, ever thought that way. So that, next level made it be like, man, this is like actually like kind of like my superpower, because I feel like I'm a superhero now. And with some of these looks, I kind of look like one. So that's kind of where we're at now, is like finding different levels of creativity, things that I can do with it, but also how I can see it in just much more fulfilling, impactful, beautiful ways that I didn't really get the chance to do so when I was younger.
Yeah, I love your Instagram. So what was the response you got when you started posting on social media?
Response was wonderful. People really, really loved it. I mean, of course, you're going to get your offhand, person who has a comment about how, the best peach in the world is disgusting. But no, the response was incredibly supportive. A lot of inspiration, actually, like that. I think that really was a domino effect. I think I started to see people, comment like, wow, I didn't know you could do this as well. I've never seen a birthmark like this before, or I've never seen a birthmark in general. And then people with facial differences in the birthmark community kind of starting to do similar thing, which was really, really amazing to see. And that's still to this day, very much still get comments or just messages from people that they've never, ever seen anybody else that looked like them, which is, it's completely understandable with the lack of representation and awareness that we have, but at the same time, for how long that we've had social media, it's still sometimes quite a surprise. But just overall incredibly supportive, and it inspires a lot of people to see whatever it is that they're dealing with, whether that's a physical difference or an internal, or just very like just a self. They're in their own self-love journey, wherever that is. Like it's just something they haven't seen before, and they it shows that people are very much they desire to see, one, different in general. I think everyone's very sick of just seeing the same thing over and over again, the same type of sexual appeal, the same type of main character energy. And we want to see what, our world actually looks like. And I think people are becoming more and more vocal about that desire.
Yeah. And I feel like it is a journey. I feel like we're always on that journey. It doesn't just stop one day, like even as we get older. And I feel like there's so much more people advocating and speaking up than when I was growing up. It just feels like people in their 20s and 30s are so much more out there than I ever was. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with the people who come before us or before who have sort of paved the way. But I feel like also with social media and all these things, it seems like it's easier to get the messages out there. And it makes me so happy to see you and some of the others doing that, because I think it's hopefully helping to normalize facial differences in some way.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think even just seeing people just happy living their lives, even like if they don't have a difference, they're just woke up from bed, their hair's a mess, they got no makeup on, they're breaking out, they're, whatever's hanging out, and they're just living life, and they're just living it beautifully. And I need to see that. Like I need to remind myself that like perfection is messy and perfection is just existing. And seeing other people's self-confidence is very contagious.
Absolutely. Representation in media and beauty is a huge focus of your work, I think. And what changes have you seen over the years, and what progress do you think still needs to be made? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, good question. I mean, representation, we still have a lot of work to do, like a lot of work to do. I feel like in every department and every aspect of like business and creativity, and just, I am seeing more brands, more makeup brands and skincare brands becoming more inclusive with how they're marketing and who they're marketing to. And I was actually lucky enough to be part of a makeup brand called It Cosmetics, where that was a big push of their latest campaign for their CC cream, was having a little bit more of inclusivity in their models. And so you can actually see my face in Sephora and Ulta.
I know. I love it.
And like I haven't seen that before. I think It Cosmetics actually did something similar maybe a few years ago, maybe not as big of a scale, but like I'm hearing more and more from makeup and skincare brands that this next push within beauty industry is facial differences. I think within the media and film industry, disability is the next push. That's what I have been hearing from, I'm part of like the SAG disability committee, and, I'm being as a producer, I do ask around a lot of these questions, but it's still so niche, and it's still so incredibly difficult. You really have to have a brand that really believes in that. You really have to have a producer that, has some type of personal experience, even if it's just within an extension of somebody else. Like it's like the door is opening for the conversation to be had so much more. And I think the conversation is being taken more seriously. Right. But yeah, I think the work is just, I don't think it's any easier, to be honest. Like we have these doors open for these conversations, but then you see all of these DEI policies and initiatives that are rolling back. You see that disability community is very much one of the marginalized communities that is being attacked, essentially, as far as their rights and their benefits. We have discrimination policies in place for a very specific reason. Right. And people with visible differences experience that every single day, and they do experience that in their workplace and our opportunities. So the fight, if anything, I think is probably even stronger. Right. So I I don't really know all that it would take. I think it would take so incredibly much, but seeing more and more people advocate in their respected space is, I think, the first best step. We're talking about it, we're sharing about the information, the experiences that we deal with, the help that we need from the community. We're sharing about this on social media. People are becoming more aware of our struggles, while also trying to advocate for those opportunities. And there are those people that have those resources, that have that funding, and that have that passion and that intention to create those opportunities for people like us. They're just, not as many people as we would hope. And now that have these challenges that they even have to now face when they're just trying to do something good, it's hard. But we just keep pushing, and we got this project. We got a slate of feature films that we're working on, and TV series where the roles are incredibly inclusive and fun. And I know there are people out there that will fund it. I'm not going to knock on any studio doors, though. I know where my avenue is going to be. It's going to be completely private funding, where someone who believes in that message, who wants to see that message come out there. And then once studios see the success, because everything's business, once they see it's less of a risk assessment on their end, then someone might, come on board and come behind, and now we can make it more of a bigger message. But it's getting to that point, which is always the most difficult. But we're getting there.
Yeah. I think 2 thoughts I had while you were talking is, one is that it is definitely a little nerve-wracking or even scary, the potential of the DEI rollback and what that's going to mean for people with disabilities and facial differences. And also, I think that the other thing I think a lot about is that we're not quite part of the bigger conversation on disability and differences yet. But I feel like we're breaking through a little bit. I think as you said, there's still a lot of work to be done in this field. And I think also not a lot of people know about facial differences or cleft or craniofacial differences. And I think awareness and advocacy is so important in doing that. But I feel like it's happening much more than when I was growing up, for sure.
Definitely.
So, yeah,
100%.
To our audience, I hope you're enjoying this episode of myFace, myStory. Whether it's your first time joining us or you've been with us since the beginning, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube and Apple Podcast channels and sign up for our mailing list at myface.org/mystory. So how do you navigate the challenges of working in the fashion, film, and beauty industries while advocating for inclusivity?
So I just signed with ZBD or ZBD.
Yes, that's
ZBD.
great.
I think it was the beginning of 2024? Yeah, it was just, so it's still pretty recent. Prior to that, it was whatever gigs I could get, on my own. And even now it's usually brands and companies that are, if they go to a company like ZBD, which represents mainly different inclusive types of models, so they're obviously going for that type of look and that creative. So it doesn't feel like, there's a lot of work to push for advocacy when the brand's already kind of coming for you. But, when I would reach out to makeup companies, kind of cold email with sponsorships, with social media sponsorships, going with companies where their messaging was already in line with differences, but didn't have any models to represent that. And that would definitely be my pitch, is, to kind of be like, hey, if you're going to be representing or say that you represent these types of people, then you really need to represent these types of people. Sometimes it was, oh, wow, you're absolutely right. We would love to actually do a sponsorship with you. And I'm the first, facially different type of model that they've done any type of work with. Others where that's just not where their marketing and focus is quite at.
Right.
So it's it's a handful of things. It's with the brands that are somewhat interested, like at cosmetics, when they come to us looking for inclusive models, oh, I'm right there, go into the social media, person, or any type of creative producer, where I'm like, how do we make this bigger? How do we have a bigger, lasting, relationship? And I'm not just talking me. I'm not just talking birthmarks. I'm talking X, Y, and Z. How do we do a campaign together? Like I'm always trying to look for, how do we make this a more lasting relationship? It's not just a one-off. I do think I have done things for free just to get my foot in the door with the brand, to just show, hey, this is how well it can go. This is how well it can do. Here's just a little taste of, opening a door into having a market of specifically 800 million customers. 800. There's over 800 million people with birthmarks. Over 24 million people in the world with porcine stains. That's a really big open market that no one's really.
I have no idea. I have no idea what that
and that's
means.
just birthmarks. I'm not even talking about all craniofacial differences. And I think it's kind of just, I try to present it more in that way, just in more in their language of like, here's a business model, and here are some numbers that you're missing out on. It's also creating projects and trying to get into new avenues. I've created a pitch for Mattel for Birthmark Barbie, and trying to get representation and advocacy within that space. Trying to get representation, advocacy in the own space that I work in within, films and producing, and creating a slate of films, and finally have a roster of individuals where I can actually take this to, and something could actually happen successfully with, fingers crossed. So there's a lot of projects and avenues where, in books, different spaces that birthmark emojis, facially different birthmark emojis, where we submitted, they all got denied. But so we're working. Yeah,
that would be amazing to have emojis.
Right. Yeah. So it's seeing kind of where it lacks, which is everywhere, and just seeing where I can personally tap into, where I have expertise. But that also extends to medical and actual like policies and just discrimination policies, and going to the medical boards and having a bit of a refreshed actual medical model, and how we educate people about facial differences, or just really differences in general, but facial differences is a really big thing. And I actually talked to I was doing this commercial for Figs. It's a high-end scrub company, and so it was 12 plastic surgeons and doctors and nurses and all these different fields, and there was a few dermatologists there. And I asked them, just like, hey, I'm just so curious. So like currently, or when you were in school, like what was the medical education that you got off of birthmarks? She obviously knew what a birthmark was because she's a dermatologist, but she was like, you will laugh. We have one 30-minute lecture to cover all 3,000 plus skin conditions. And that's it. That's it.
I feel like I keep saying we need to do a better job of educating the medical community and getting in front of them. Because I remember years ago, 3 or 4 of us from the facial difference community actually went into a medical school and presented, and they said they don't have that opportunity to hear from people themselves because they're just reading it in a textbook.
Right.
And that experience just was life-changing for them. And I just feel like every time I do it, I'm like, we need to do more of this, because I think it's so important, especially getting them when they're just starting out. Mm-hmm. So even just to know what the proper terminology is, or what words to use, what not to use, and thinking about that person as a human being beyond just the textbook person, and so I think that I would love to do more in the medical community.
Yeah, 100%.
So what advice would you give to someone struggling with self-acceptance due to their visible difference? And maybe what would you say if they wanted to do what you're doing and get out there and do acting or social media in a big way? Like, what would you say to them?
So much. I think, one of the biggest things that took the longest for me, and it seemed the most simplest and one of the most powerful, was just don't wait to ask for permission. No one's going to give it to you. You will wait your entire life for it. Start doing the things that interest you now. Start acting like the person who you know that you envision yourself to be. There's this, they call it the Batman effect. And I love this. And I did this growing up, not even knowing this is what I was doing, but you embody the character that you are either envisioning, or that like you deep down know that that's who you are. You pretend to be a character that you are too fearful to already kind of actually claim. So you pretend it. And when you pretend to be this confident person going into the grocery store, I'm not going to let anybody bother me. I'm this main character from this movie and that I really love. And I'm going to go, and this is how I'm going to go do my groceries. It works 100% of the time. Sometimes you get out of it because it kind of will feel silly, but you practice it a little bit, and before you know it, you start becoming that. You start embodying those actual characteristics and those behaviors. To an extent. But if like that's your goal is confidence, like you will start to embody that. So you totally fake it till you make it. I think it is one of the best psychological tricks that one can do. I still do it to myself to this day. I'm not feeling in a great mood, I do the Batman effect.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept.
Because I know, because it'll just like an actor, the show must go on. If the stage rolls up, you got to go on stage. You got to go and pretend to be that character. So I think it can be really great in moments where you need to turn it on immediately like that. It's great for a gradual, result to get to from point A to point B. And it really helps, I think, kind of take away that fear and that seriousness, because you're just playing. You're just experiencing. You're pretending to be kind of someone else that you're able to then do this thing with, which can really be helpful to then get you to maybe outline your difference for the first time. It might help you go and post the photo for the very first time, to talk about it with somebody, to, if you want to be, some type of any type of work that's going to make you stand out in your authenticity and not hide. I think that's a really, really great way to do that. And the only other thing that I would give advice on is that no matter what you do, but especially if you're going to get into a space where you're going to be showing yourself to others and to the public and want to inspire, have you be your only audience. Post and talk about and do the things that you right now would comment on, would save, would go, yes, I absolutely love this, I would watch this. Or your younger self would feel incredibly inspired, would love to see that, would feel X, Y, and Z with you doing whatever it is that you're doing. Like that takes out all the noise of worrying about anybody else, anybody else's opinions, whether they're known or stranger. Any doubt that you're going to have, I wonder if anybody's going to like this, if they're going to find it funny. It's probably really, really stupid. Who cares? If you like it, and if maybe your younger self would have loved it and felt inspired, post all the stupid stuff. Say all the stupid things, because if your audience approves, which is you at the end of the day, you're solid.
What great advice. I have to take this advice. I don't know how to do it myself. Yeah.
It's a daily practice. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So what has been one of the most meaningful and memorable moments in your advocacy journey?
Oh man, there's been a lot. From moms messaging me about their daughter, and then their daughters did second grade, their first day for second grade, and they ended up, I got this fly, it's like a guest star here. They'll send me a photo of like their birthmarks all highlighted for the first time ever that they've done that out in public, and now they're like the most popular kid in their grade in school. To see my face in Sephora and Ulta, I mean, that's just like I never actually would have thought would have happened and be a possibility. So that was a huge accomplishment, and a moment that I'll definitely never forget. But yeah, there's I think another one too that I also just I can't get over is just meeting other people, whether they're in the birthmark community or like, with myFace and the craniofacial community, which I guess birthmarks and, especially on the face, it's kind of, they fall within that same category. But just, meeting other people like us, like it's that never gets old. That has been one of the most impactful, inspirational, most powerful, like, family, like, just those moments mean so much. So it's been a journey of all of it being pretty amazing.
Yeah. I always say, and I think it's so true here, that there's power in the shared story and knowing you're not alone, and the connections you make when you share your journey and someone says, oh, I totally get it, I can understand, because they're on that same journey, and it's just so powerful. And so that connections that other people may not understand because they haven't grown up with that or experienced it.
Right.
So, Paige, you are the host this year of myFace Celebrates Gala on June 5th. So exciting. In New York City. And so what does that mean to you to do that?
Oh, man, that means like more. I mean, it really means a lot. I'm very, very honored to be able to just even speak in a space like that with the individuals that are going to be there. I mean, there's some powerhouses that are going to be there, people that I look up to, that I'm inspired by. So to even kind of like announce anything and host anything feels really, really fun and really incredible. I'm ecstatic to just see people that I've already met there, meet new people that I haven't met there. Because again, like meeting communities like this, there's nothing else like it. You don't walk into a room feeling like this in any other space. It's a where like you actually feel seen and heard and understood, and you know that people are looking at you in such a different way. That you just, that's a feeling that like I've craved for so long growing up, because I never got that just until like a few years ago. So being in that space alone is just probably what I'm most excited about. But to just, to kind of just soak up the inspiration from everybody is what I think is going to mean so much to me.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite evenings, I can say that. And we are giving the Courage Award to Adam Pearson, who starred in A Different Man. So that's also very exciting. So
very, very excited. I'm a huge fan of Adam, so I'm so stoked to meet him. I have to get his autograph, the whole thing.
I know, right?
Yeah. If he'll have time for me,
Exactly. So how can people support greater representation of facial differences in media and everyday life?
Support your influencers and your advocates on social media that are doing this, that are speaking about this, having a platform, having an audience for us is huge. It's because brands still look at that for opportunities and for collaboration and for sponsorship. Producers, they still look at that when they want to fund a project. Okay, well, who's in it? How many following do they have? It seems silly, but and not all people work that way, but a lot of people still do. Okay, well, what kind of audience do you have? If you have a voice, well, how many people are actually following and wanting to hear what you have to say? So follow them, like and comment their posts, share their posts, help them create a community, help them create a support, because that helps open up so many doors for us to have access to be able to speak in other places, so that our faces and bodies can be seen in, the clothes that we wear and the movies that we watch, the books that we read. I would say that the most. I mean, of course, foundations need donations to keep with the initiatives. If people ever feel like they've got money to spend, we will absolutely, definitely, that it goes to amazing causes. It goes to people who really need it, and it's a community that we're trying to create representation for. But I think money is always a hard subject for a lot of people these days. So I would just say go support, just go follow these influencers, and like what they're fighting for, and that actually helps a lot more than I think a lot of people realize.
Absolutely. So you touched on this before, but what would you say to your younger self, knowing what you know today? I think your cat has an
My
opinion
cat
on
has a
that.
few things. Yeah, he's got a few ideas. Yeah, I mean I'll say this again because it was just such a big moment for me. But just to don't ask for permission. It really felt like the silliest thing when I kind of figured that out. But also like without judgment, because I was like, well, of course you didn't know you had permission to stand out. You didn't have to just blend in. And I I think the other thing I would have told her was that the uncomfortability that you make people feel for just existing will never go away. To learn, which I think us in the situations that we were in, I think we were forced to learn this pretty quickly. But there for a while, I fought that feeling though. I fought that that. Oh, I won't be surprised next time. Maybe that was the last time. Oh, well, it comes from a kid, it won't come from a doll, or whatever it is. And this being surprised and having my expectations be squashed were always really difficult to recover from.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been learn how to use that uncomfortability to your advantage a little quicker, and learn to kind of get comfortable with other people's uncomfortability. And now it's at a point where I'm really into it, maybe a little too much. Now I got to kind of learn to step back a little bit, because I feel like I'm like this little demon of like, ooh, someone's uncomfortable, like, ooh, how exciting. So I got to tone it back a bit, but those would have been the things I would have told her.
I love the quote. I think it's from Wonder, why blend in when you were born to stand out? And somehow that reminds me of what you were just saying. So who do you see when you look in the mirror today?
Oh man, I see this badass, unapologetic, like just like superhero, like woman. Yeah, I see someone who's fun and who's like really enjoying themselves and who they are, and yeah, I just see someone who would be like really fun to hang out with.
So my last question is, what are your dreams for the future? And then where can people find you on social media or anywhere else?
My ultimate dream would be that this is no longer a conversation, that this is no longer work and an initiative and an intention that I'm trying to do, that inclusivity and diversity is something to fight for, and that representation awareness is still a thing that we have to make. I would just hope that now then exists, and I can maybe move on to just creating normal stories that and still include us, but normal has just kind of shifted to what reality truly is. But on a small scale, I mean, I would love to see people who look like me in my movies. I would love to see people who look like me in more dolls, Barbie dolls, on the billboards of the clothes that we wear. Those are smaller goals, but ultimately would just be that this conversation really doesn't need to be had anymore. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm on TikTok and YouTube, but my main platform is Instagram at flawless_effect with an A. Website's kind of being redone at the moment, so I'm the most active on the IG.
Right. I did go to there was a Barbie exhibit in New York City, and they had all the Barbies with different disabilities. Differences, but I was thinking as I was looking at them how amazing it would be if there was a Barbie with a facial difference. They have with hearing aid but not with an actual facial difference. So I agree, that would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised how many dolls they kind of had in their diversity collection. Like, I think, obviously they have vitiligo, they have disabled Barbie in a wheelchair.
Right.
I think they have limb difference Barbie. Yes. Like you said, deaf Barbie. I think they've got blind Barbie too. Down Barbie. So yeah, I mean, it's like the next one in line is like a facial difference. It's like, come on.
I agree. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paige, for sharing
So
your
welcome.
story and your advocacy. And I love what you're doing on Instagram and your messages. And I can't wait to see you at myFace Celebrates on June 5th in New York City, where you will be our host. And we have Adam Pearson getting the Courage Award, and our myFace stars performing. You are going to love that part. It's my favorite part too.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, you can learn more at myfacecelebrates.org. So thank you again, Paige.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This was so lovely and so excited to see you June 5th. It's going to be great. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be the best.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Paige is an inspiration to me and everyone she meets. Everyone has a story, and I'm hopeful that by sharing stories like these, we can create a kinder world. For more than 70 years, myFace has been dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences by providing access to holistic, comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes. To learn more, please visit myface.org. If you would like to learn more about the myFace support groups so that you can connect with others in the craniofacial community, please visit myface.org/online-groups. Be sure to subscribe to myFace myStory on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube to get notified of our next episode. If you'd like to receive email reminders of new episodes, sign up at myface.org/mystory. That's myface.org/mystory. Thank you for joining us for this episode of myFace myStory. Remember, it takes courage to share your story, so be brave and stand out.